fiends, welcome once again to another edition of the Ministry of Horror. I'm your host, as per usual, Tezz, and this is back to the pre-recorded show schedule. It's gonna be a pretty quick one. There's no main discussion, as this is a pre-recorded jobby, but we do have a retro review. There's some news. There's not a huge amount of news, but we'll go through the main bits that I've sort of collated for today's show. But yeah, we normally have a bit of a preamble about what's been going on, horror-wise, what's been going on, gaming-wise. Not a lot. Not a lot. I was away over the weekend visiting family, and this week I've been off work for annual leave, but pretty much just revising, hammering revision. Had an exam today. Won't hear the results for 5 to 6 weeks. It was pretty tough, so who knows, I did the best that I could do, and we shall have to wait and see. But yeah, essentially I haven't really had much opportunity to do much, gaming or horror-wise, but I have been able to watch a horror film. I've been able to also watch a retro film for review, and we'll be talking about those a bit later on. We have a review of the 2023 film The Passenger, which has been on my radar for a little while. It's a bit of an indie thriller. And then the retro review I watched last night is from the Arrow The Video Store collection. And I watched Cellar Dweller. Knew nothing about the film going into it. Not sure what I knew coming out of it. We'll talk about that a bit later on and review that. But gaming-wise, it's really just been the odd bit of Final Fantasy VII Remake when I can. I'm still determined to get that finished so I can then get Rebirth. But I'm trying not to buy Rebirth before it's finished. And other than that, just reading. I've been reading The Changing Man, which I picked up from a local bookshop a couple of weeks back. Added it to the ever-growing to-be-read list, which has increased a bit more recently, if anyone follows the TikTok. But I have been reading that. It's quite a simple and easy book to read. I'm wondering if it's meant to be young adult fiction. It was, because like I said, it was in the horror section, which I was surprised the local bookshop had a horror section. Normally it's just sort of bound up into sci-fi and fantasy. But they had a horror section, and I thought, oh, the artwork for that was interesting. It's okay, but yeah, it is very basic so far. But I'm getting through it pretty quickly. Like, I think if I can get some time another weekend, I'll probably have it finished in the weekend, and that means I'll have read it in a week, which is not bad going, considering I've not really done much else outside of studying. The other news is next week, when we do the live show, which I can't remember if I have plans on Friday or not, so keep your eyes on the Discord for any sort of potential schedule changes. But next live show is going to be the horror anime show. But thing in the Discord, quite a lot of comments come back, and I've kind of sourced or collated the films that I'm going to discuss. Some of them aren't outright horror, but they have horror elements. You're probably gonna, if you know horror anime, you're probably gonna know all these ones. I'm not doing anything too obscure. And it's mainly focusing on film. There will be a TV honourable mention, and anyone that has seen my shelves behind me on the windowsill may have an idea what series I will touch on there. But that's next week. So this week, we should now hopefully have the soundboard working, so I think it's about time we got into some horror news. He says, and then the soundboard proceeds not to play. Steam Stream Deck. I think I know why that is. This is the news. Ho, 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 ho.
This is God.
You hang up on me again, I'll cut you like a fish, understand?
Might as well make the use of the sounds while it's actually working. This, as with all the horror news, comes from bloodydisgusting.com. This is right up from John Squires, and these are the 8 new horror movies releasing this week, including In a Violent Nature, which I am hyped for. There's been a lot of discussion about In a Violent Nature. So, first up, after scaring up 53 million at the worldwide box office, director Akasha Stevenson's prequel The First Omen is now available for digital purchase at home. The First Omen is available to own at digital retailers such as Apple TV, Prime Video, and Fandango at home. It also arrives on Hulu May 30th and comes to Blu-ray and DVD July 30th. The First Omen is an exceptional expansion on the classic, earning rave reviews across the board and impressing us all here at Bloody Disgusting, Megan Navarro wrote in her review. In the film, when a young American woman is sent to Rome to begin a new life of service to the church, she encounters a darkness that causes her to question her own faith and uncovers a terrifying conspiracy that hopes to bring about the birth of evil incarnate. Now, I heard some good things about The First Omen, but I never got around to watching it at the cinema. I didn't have a lot of opportunity. I think the one time where it was potential to go and see it while it was still in, I just wasn't in the mood, and since missed it at the cinema. Funnily enough, I wanted this week to go and see Tarot, because while I imagine Tarot is very much a by the numbers teen horror, I thought it could be quite fun to watch and review. But it's barely been in the cinema a week in the UK. It's already out of my local cinemas, which are like Odeon and Cineworld. It's not good, not good look. But The First Omen, I am tempted to rent it. I don't think it's come yet to UK at home, but I think it's you can pre-order. Yeah, it does look pretty interesting. I think the thing is with me, The Omen is a franchise that I like the first one. Well, the second one's okay. The third one's passable. And then the TV movie, fourth one was terrible. And I can't remember much about the remake, to be honest. I think the remake was quite a by the numbers remake. Nothing really too adventurous. So because of that reason, I just never really had the First Omen on my radar as being, ooh, that's a franchise returning that I want to hop back into. But I'm willing to give it a go. Speaking of Tarot, from Sony's Screen Gems, the fresh out of theatres horror movie Tarot is now available at home for digital rental for $9.99 and digital purchase for $14.99 beginning yesterday. Wow, so we should be getting that in the UK then soon. And if those are the same sort of prices, not bad. I can stomach dropping £10 to rent it, because it's about between like £10 and £16 to watch at the cinema. I mean, the prices really all seem to fluctuate, which is madness. So, as previously mentioned, artist Trevor Henson designed the 8 unique monsters featured in Tarot, with the Tarot card design entities including the High Priestess, the Hermit, the Hangman, the Fool, the Magician, Death, and the Devil. Larson Thompson, Harriet Slater, Adrian Bradley, Avantika, and Jacob Batalon star in the new horror movie Tarot, which was directed by Spencer Cohen and Anna Hallberg. The trailer for it kind of seems to me to give you a good idea of what sort of film it is, jump scare heavy, which isn't always a bad thing, but isn't always a good thing. Sometimes it works really effectively, Conjuring, Insidious. Other times it's very poor. I think it's called Unfriended, and the first Ouija film. Terrible jump scares. But the creature design, the monster designs look pretty good in Tarot. It looks quite unique, so on my radar. Next up, director Quarks, who did All the Gods in the Sky, never heard of it, explores the peculiar, welcoming all those hungry for wonder in Pandemonium, a unique cinematic blend of fantasy, drama, genre, and humour. Pandemonium is now available on VOD outlets and Blu-ray in the United Kingdom, United States, and Canada. The film is also now streaming on Arrow in the UK, US, CA, and Ireland. CA is Canada. I need to hear about this Pandemonium. I'm not familiar with it, but Arrow is a service I have used in the past, and I just stopped using because a lot of those films were the films that I would watch on there were also at the time on Shudder. Arrow Video previews Pandemonium takes the viewer on a chilling journey as 3 interconnected stories unravel in this macabre exploration of tales depicting fallen souls. From the intricacies of everyday drama to the realms of supernatural intrigue, each narrative weaves a haunting tapestry that blurs the lines between the mortal and the supernatural. Nathan and Daniel are caught in a road accident that kills them both. As they come to grips with their deaths, Nathan confronts his past and the consequences of his actions. Now trapped in the hellish void of pandemonium, he encounters tortured souls like Jeannie, a disturbed child, Julia, a grief-stricken mother, and Norgal, the guide of the Great Void. Will he find a way to escape the torment that awaits him for eternity? Question mark. It sounds like it could be kind of interesting. I mean, the creature designs in one of the images on Play Disgusting looks pretty horrifying. Next up, from producer Sam Raimi, the Violent Boy Kills World may not have made a splash in theatres, but Lionsgate and roadside attractions are hoping you'll catch it at home. Boy Kills World is now available on digital, $19.99 to rent, $24.99 to buy. Starring Bill Skarsgård, the film from producer Sam Raimi and Roy Lee is described as a one-of-a-kind action spectacle set in a dystopian fever dream reality. In Boy Kills World, Boy, played by Bill Skarsgård, is a deaf mute with a vibrant imagination. When his family is murdered, Boy escapes to the jungle and is trained by a mysterious shaman to repress his childish imagination and become an instrument of death. The cast also includes Happy Death Day star Jessica Roth, Yayan Ruhian, Andrew Koji, Isaiah Mustafa, Famke Janssen, Chateau Copley, Michelle Dockery, Brett Gelman, Quinn Copeland, and twins Cameron and Nicholas Crovetti. Moritz Moore directed Boy Kills World, which is written by Arend Renners and Tyler Burton Smith. So we talked about this a little bit a while ago in the news when it was a new film come to the cinema. I'd seen the trailers. I'm happy to be proven wrong, but it didn't grab me as my sort of film. You know, Sam Raimi, I've talked before how Evil Dead, yes, great, love those. But other features had a very unique Sam Raimi touch, which I think is great. That's kind of what you want as a director, is to have that feel, that tone to your films, you know, like John Carpenter. But for me, it wasn't for me. It was a bit too slapstick. It was a bit too OTT with CGI gore. And, you know, that's just my personal preference. Like, you know, Spider-Man 1 and 2, I think were brilliant. Non-horror, of course. And I felt that it kind of reined in those slapstick things, but obviously a different genre, whatever. My point being that from the trailers, Boy Kills World didn't seem like my kind of thing. But I kind of felt that with like the John Wick sequels. After seeing the first one, I felt the sequels all look very flashy. Since seeing 2 and 3, and they're a lot of fun. So happy to be proven wrong. Next up, one of Bloody Disgusting's 10 best international horror movies of 2023, Home Invasion Nightmare Property, was released onto digital and on demand by Dark Star Pictures on May 28th. The film won Best Picture at last year's Fantastic Fest and has since garnered significant attention on the genre festival circuit, including screenings at Stiggers, Edinburgh, and Berlin. Daniel... Oh, wait a minute, this is just about praise for the film. There's a remarkably simple concept in play in Property, but Bandiera never overextends the film's reach or makes its prolonged assault feel repetitive or formulaic, he continued. Property doesn't cheat its way out of this premise, and it's easily the best trapped in a car horror movie this side of Cujo, albeit with a more socially minded and modern message. So we don't actually just have a general blurb of the film. It's straight into praise, which, come on, help me out here, Bloody Disgusting. Next, while we continue waiting for the Friday the 13th franchise to get off its ass, which cinematically wise, who knows when, and that's what people want, at least we have fresh new original slashers inspired by the 1980s classics to keep us entertained. Like Terrified 2 before it, upcoming slasher movie In a Violent Nature is being released in theatres on May 31st in its unrated form. It's also coming soon to Shudder. The unique art house slasher movie frames the slayings from the killer's perspective, and audiences have already been losing their minds at the gory kills during preview screenings. In the film, when a locket is removed from a collapsed fire tower in the woods that entombs the rotting corpse of Johnny, a vengeful spirit spurred on by a horrific 60-year-old crime, his body is resurrected and becomes hell-bent on retrieving it. The undead golem hones in on the group of vacationing teens responsible for the theft and proceeds to methodically slaughter them one by one in his mission to get it back, along with anyone in his way. Chris Nash wrote and directed In a Violent Nature, but Ry Barrett, Andrea Pavlovich, Cameron Love, Reese Presley, Liam Leone, Charlotte Cregan, Leah Rose Sebastianis, Sam Ralston, Alexandra Oliver, and Lauren Taylor star in the slasher film. I'm hyped for this. I'm just constantly seeing buzz on X for In a Violent Nature. The trailers for it, just the setting, this like I guess it's like alopecia. I don't know, can't pronounce it. American Woods. It looks really, really, really cool, and the fact it's from the killer's perspective. Like normally, I kind of think it gets a bit boring when the film focuses too much on the killer as opposed to the protagonists. Traditionally, the protagonist trying to survive, but this feels like it's doing it in a more unique way as opposed to the focus being on the killers and their kills. He is this film's protagonist in a twisted way. He is our focal point entirely. So I'm pretty hyped up for In a Violent Nature. I don't think we'll be getting a UK cinema release. I'd be very surprised if we did, but nevertheless, it's come to Shudder. Hyped. Jesus Christ, we've got 2 more new films to discuss. So, of a twisty story of greed, murder, and gourmet food, the psychological thriller What Do You Wish For, starring Nick Stahl, will be released by Magnet in theatres and on VOD this Friday. In the film, Ryan is a talented, down-on-his-luck chef with crushing gambling problems. Circumstances being what they are, he leaves town in a hurry for the safe haven of an unnamed Latin American country, where his friend Jack, a more prestigious chef with his own unique troubles, welcomes him into his home. Ryan has no idea how Jack's able to afford his extravagant lifestyle, cooking for the elite in paradise. He doesn't want to feel envious, yet he can't help but want this life for himself as well. Soon, a grim twist of fate will give that to him. Ryan assumes his friend's identity and soon discovers just what Jack's been doing to maintain the lifestyle he so desperately craved. Thompson Topolsky, Randy Vasquez, Penelope Mitchell, and Juan Carlos Messiah also star. Nick Stahl's a name that, is for no fault of his own, has always been a little bit tainted for me. I really didn't like Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines when it came out. And I think when you've got a sequel to one of the best films ever made, when there are returning characters, you kind of want to see them return. I mean, as you get older, you get more of an understanding of, look, was it going to work at that time for Edward Furlong to return? Potentially not. I don't know where he was at the time, but I know he has had his troubles with, I'm going to just say substance abuse, whether that's alcohol or whatnot. I don't know the details, so I won't go into them. But from what I understand, he wasn't in the best place, personally and professionally, to go into another big blockbuster. And then they didn't have Linda Hamilton back. I don't know if that was a contract thing or whatnot. But you kill off one of your main characters off screen, that always sucks. And then you bring in someone new playing a previously iconic role. It just doesn't really work. And Terminator 3 the ending of it I thought was good, but the rest of it just felt too Hollywoodized. It just felt like Terminator 2 mixed with Transformers. Well, not even Terminator 2, but you know what I mean. It felt like the action set pieces were just thick and fast, but never had those moments to build and become epic. And for that reason, whenever I've seen Nick Stahl's in something, I just think, oh god, yeah, the crap John Connor. And that's unfair. He played, was it the Yellow Bastard in Sin City? And he was very good in that role. So I still find it though when I see Nick Stahl's in a film, I go, which is very unreasonable and unfair. Setup for this sounds kind of interesting. I do enjoy a good psychological thriller when done well, although I always feel that there's that ease of trepidation when I see psychological thriller, because sometimes the psychological element is, oh, it turns out it was all in their head at the end, and I hate that bullshit ending. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of it's all in their head. So when I see psychological thriller, I get a little bit antsy. And then finally for the new films, prolific genre filmmaker Takeshi Miike, who did Audition, which is incredible, and Itchy the Killer, which is effed up, is back this week with Lumberjack the Monster, an adaptation of Kaibutsu no Kikori by Mayasuke Karai. Lumberjack the Monster debuts on Netflix Friday, June 1st. What? Do they mean Friday, May the 31st? Bloody disgusting. Get your dates right. In the film, Akiri Ninomiya is a remorseless lawyer who doesn't hesitate to eliminate anyone who stands in his way. One night, he's brutally attacked by an unknown assailant wearing a monster mask. Although he miraculously survives the assault, Ninomiya becomes fixated on finding the attacker and getting revenge. Meanwhile, a series of gruesome murders occur where the victims are found with their brains removed from their bodies. While police conduct an intensive investigation, Ninomiya seeks revenge against the assaulter, who will uncover the truth first. Takeshi Miike, I haven't seen any of his films for a long time, so I don't know if he still is as crazy as he was in the past, but I've talked before briefly about Audition, such a film of two halves, slow burn drama first half, horrifying descent into hell in the second half, and Ichi the Killer is just a real mindfuck of a film. And he's done an episode which got banned of Masters of Horror. So I'm definitely going to be trying to watch this if it comes to UK Netflix. Lumberjack the Monster just sounds incredible. Let's move on to the rest of our horror news. So there'd been varying things on this recently, but now it appears to be confirmed. Bill Skarsgård is to return as Pennywise in Welcome to Derry. This comes from Megan Navarro. Mac's series Welcome to Derry will be bringing a familiar face back to terrorise the children. Bill Skarsgård is set to reprise his role as Pennywise in the prequel series, Deadline has reported tonight. The upcoming series will premiere sometime in 2025. The series will be a prequel to the two Stephen King-based It movies from Andy Muschietti. Skarsgård is set to star in and executive produce. The actor joins the previously announced cast of Taylor Page, Jovan Adepo, Chris Chalk, James Remar, Madeline Stowe, and Stephen Ryder. Andy Muschietti and Barbara Muschietti and Jason Fuchs are on board the Pennywise prequel project from Warner Brothers Television, with Muschietti set to direct 4 episodes of the 9-episode series. The series will begin in the 1960s, in the time leading up to the events of It Part 1, the 2017 film based on the Stephen King horror novel. The story is also said to include the origin story of Pennywise the Clown. Jason Fuchs and Brad Caleb Kane will serve as co-showrunners for the prequel series. Published in 1986, Stephen King's massive novel was, of course, first turned into a miniseries in the 90s, with Tim Curry playing the role later played by Bill Skarsgård in the movies. The tale centres on the town of Derry, Maine, where a group of friends called the Losers Club battle Pennywise the Killer Clown, first as kids and then 27 years later as adults. This marks Skarsgård's return to King's TV universe, as he previously starred in the Hulu series Castle Rock. Okay. Big Stephen King fan. I think that is no surprise. So I'm pretty hyped up for this. I say hyped up. I'm gonna be trepid, purely because I really enjoyed it. Chapter 1, chapter 2 though, it just didn't really hit the same notes. It had great casting in it. I thought the finale was quite bad. The de-aging really wasn't done that well, and I think was a bit unnecessary. And it was a bit overly long. It didn't feel like it needed to be that long. It's based on a huge novel. Obviously, it's been split into 2 films, but I don't know. Part 2 just had a few more missteps, whereas Part 1, I feel, generally kind of knocked it out the park. You know, it wasn't 100% faithful to the novel, but at the end of the day, adaptations kind of have to put their own twist on things. Otherwise, just read the book. So I'm pretty intrigued by this. I do feel that if Bill Skarsgård wasn't returning, I would have liked a return to the makeup and attire Pennywise the Clown as per the 1990 Tim Curry miniseries, just because that is how I read Pennywise the Clown appearing when I read the book. And I've read the book quite a few times. It's one of my favourite Stephen King books, minus the one particular chapter, which, if you know, you know. But that's kind of how I've always seen Pennywise the Clown. But yeah, Skarsgård's returning. Pretty cool. Next up, video game news. Sony State of Play reveals Silent Hill 2 release date, Alien Rogue Incursion, and Until Dawn remastered gameplay. Comes from Mike Wilson. Not to be outdone later today by Konami, Sony has revealed several surprises during its State of Play, including the release date of the Until Dawn remaster, as well as a brand new trailer and release date for Blooper Team's Silent Hill 2. Survivos and 20th Century Games dropped the first gameplay footage for the upcoming Alien Rogue Incursion. While the trailer is still keeping with the holiday 2024 release date for the moment, the trailer does drop us down on LV-354, aka Purden, for some up-close and personal xenomorph action. Rogue Incursion is also in development for Steam VR and Quest 3. It was a VR game. Don't have VR. Supermassive's Until Dawn also received a new trailer showing off its graphical makeover. The port is set for release fall 2024 on PC via Steam and PS5. Developer Ballistic Moon is handling the port duties. I don't know if it's that necessary. I know that Until Dawn is quite a few years old now. It kind of started the boom of the Dark Pictures anthology, and then we got The Quarry, and they're now doing a cinematic version of it, which I don't know how that's going to work. But I've always felt that Until Dawn's graphics were pretty darn good. So initially it does feel quite unnecessary to me. I haven't seen any of the footage yet, so I don't know, because all the links on YouTube seem to be area restricted, so I can't see them. And then rather than waiting until the latest Silent Hill transmission, Konami and Blooper Team pulled the trigger earlier and revealed a new gameplay trailer for the remake of Silent Hill 2, which also included the game's release date of October 8th for PC via Steam and PS5. More info is expected later today from Konami regarding Silent Hill 2, including other Silent Hill titles currently in development. So there seems to be a lot of trepidation around Silent Hill 2, I think mainly due to it being Blooper Team. I don't know why Blooper Team have a bad rap, and that's purely because I don't off the top of my head know what games Blooper Team have done. But it does feel, Blooper, I should say, not Blooper, it does feel that there seems to be a bit of wariness about Blooper Team managing Silent Hill 2. Now, Silent Hill 2 is probably the most iconic visually of the Silent Hill games. Growing up, I got it as soon as it came out, and I completed it. And I thought, and this is the time when I probably liked a bit more of a challenge in my game. I thought at the time, okay, that seemed kind of easy. I don't think I died once in it, really. And the original Silent Hill I never actually completed because I was very young when I got it. It was on my, I got it with a chipped PS1 original. And it was good, very good. It's quite difficult. I think I'd got to a certain point where I was just like, I don't have the kind of the ammo levels to get through this section, and I gave up, which is a shame because Silent Hill 1 is the game that I would love to be remade, because I think the story was better in Silent Hill 1. I thought the monsters were creepy. I mean, obviously we've got not Pinhead. We've got Pyramid Head in Silent Hill 2. But I just felt that Silent Hill 1 was that level of creepier. And we've never really had a HD remake or remaster or anything like that. So that is what I would like. And if they're going to do 2, then maybe do 3, because I never played 3, and I know you can get the HD collection of 2 and 3, but again, I've never bothered with that because I'd want to play a HD version of Silent Hill 1. That's what I want. But yeah, an Alien VR game, probably cool, but I don't really like VR. I get motion sickness. So we'll move on from that. Got a couple of bits of news left. The Front Room, A24 horror movie from the Eggers brothers, releasing in September. So this is John Squires, right up. Brandy Norwood from I Still Know What We Did Last Summer will return to horror in the upcoming A24 movie The Front Room, and the film's been given a release date today. A24 will release The Front Room in theatres September 6th, 2024. What's particularly interesting about the psychological horror movie is that it's being directed by Max and Sam Eggers, brother of Robert Eggers of The Witch and the Northman fame, and The Lighthouse. This will be the debut feature for the Eggers brothers, Variety has reported. They adapted the screenplay from Susan Hill's short story of the same name. The film follows a young, newly pregnant couple forced to take in an ailing stepmother who has long been estranged from the family. Olivier Award-winning actress Catherine Hunter, Tony Award-winning actor Andrew Burnap, and Neil Huff will also star. Max co-wrote The Lighthouse, and Sam Eggers was a production assistant on The Witch. If the Eggers brothers are anything like like their brother Robert, this has a lot of potential. I've really enjoyed the films I've seen of Robert Eggers. They just have this air of quality that kind of just brings them above the majority that goes out. You know, I do need to rewatch his films though at some point. He's one of those directors where The Witch I've seen once, The Northman I've seen once, which I was a bit less interested in because it's not really a horror film. And the Lighthouse I've seen once, but I've all enjoyed them to varying degrees, and I've all enjoyed them, and the degrees of enjoyment have all been baseline enjoyment up to really, really enjoyed. It's a weird way of getting around it. So I am interested. To see what the brothers can do, and I'm not familiar with the Front Room Susan Hill short story, but definitely want to check out. I feel right. Finally. A24 horror movie, Heretic, has been dated for November 2024 release. In the wake of A Quiet Place and 65, Scott Beck and Brian Woods are writing and directing the horror movie Heretic for A24, and the film has been given a release date this week. A24 will release Heretic in theatres on November 15th, 2024. Hugh Grant, Chloe East, and Sophie Thatcher will lead the cast of the upcoming horror movie. In the film, two missionaries become ensnared in a deadly game of cat and mouse after they knock on the wrong door. Scott Beck and Brian Woods wrote A Quiet Place for the director John Krasinski, and they just directed the high-concept Adam Driver dinosaur movie 65 last year. The duo also wrote and directed Haunt and penned the Stephen King horror movie The Boogeyman. Well, you had my interest until the very last bit. No, The Boogeyman was shit. But Haunt, I really, really enjoyed. I think it's one of those under-the-radar horrors of the last 10 years. Definitely worth a watch for a good slasher. Really, really quite tense in places and violent. And A Quiet Place, The Quiet Place is pretty good. I enjoyed The Quiet Place. I like the tension. I just wasn't really that fussed with part 2. I haven't seen anything to get me hyped for day 1. And I've not got around to seeing 65. But... we've talked before, A24 don't really tend to put guffin out. So, there we go. And that takes us to the end of this week's horror news. I told you we got to put through it. My buttons don't seem to be working. That was the news! Ho, 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 ho. Right, now, as is typically the case on, well, whether it's a pre-recorded show, whether it's a show going out live, if I'm ready too quickly for the show, usually means I haven't done something. And in this case, it is I haven't prepared the images for the artwork for the films of review. So, yes, this is pre-recorded. I could well stop the recording or do an edit. Probably not going to, because I'm kind of lazy, and I feel that we've established that by now. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll suddenly get a splash of artwork. Just bear with me while I do some on recording, not on air, editing as we go. And as you can see on screen, today's retro review is the 1988 American monster horror movie, Cellar Dweller. It's about a comic book artist who unleashes a demon after drawing it. It is directed by John Carl Buechler, written by Don Mancini, didn't know that, credited as Kid Du Bois, and stars Deborah Farentino and Brian Robbins. As of 2023, this is Don's only non-Chucky film that he has worked on. I didn't even... Because his name was credited as Kid Du Bois, I didn't know that Don Mancini was involved in this. Although I've just seen that it's executive produced by Charles Band. That makes a lot of sense. Not necessarily in a bad way, but just the feeling of it. So the plot, we have a cameo at the very start of it with Jeffrey Combs, which I thought was pretty cool before realising it's just a cameo. Colin Childress is a highly successful comic book artist who gains inspiration from a mystical book of horrific drawings, inadvertently summoning an evil spirit into his basement studio. What is happening is this spirit is this massive monster which has suddenly also materialized with a woman bloodied in its arms and screaming, because that's what Colin Childress was drawing. And he realizes this, that his drawings are coming to life, and so he then sets out to set fire to the drawings, because that should stop this monster. Problem being is, during this ensuing chaos, flammable painter liquid, whatever, white spirit, goes all everywhere, sets fire to the whole basement, killing Colin as well. We fast forward 30 years later, and his house has become a small art institute run by Mrs. Briggs, quite a stern woman. One night, comely student Whitney Taylor goes rooting around the sealed boxes in the cellar. She is a big fan of Colin Childress. She knows all about this house and the history there, and uncovers this book with this strange kind of pentagram type symbol on the chest of it, and these strange symbols. And she starts drawing an image inspired by his artwork, because he's got it's really quite a cool set area. There's this massive painting with like a comic book cover called Cellar Dweller. And she starts drawing a monster like that, and these symbols, and then, unbeknownst to her at the time, this monster appears. Now, this film is a pretty lean film. It's 77 minutes. And the feeling that I kind of got for this as I was watching this, and don't read too much into my giggles and my laughs and chortles here, it is an enjoyable film. Like, it's 77 minutes. There's no way it's going to outstay its welcome. It has that real typical kind of late 80s, early 90s Charles Band sort of Full Moon or Arena, whatever the company is. I've gone completely blank on the particular company. I don't know. I want to say Arena Films, but I think it begins with a C, not Capital. Someone messaged me when you know the title. Canon. Okay, that's it. Canon Films. It has that kind of feel where it never looks high budget, but decent production values. It doesn't look like it's just filmed in the woods for 50 quid. Like, they have nice set pieces, but it never looks expensive. It doesn't have to. But the feeling that I initially got was, man, they must have had this monster creation suit for something else, and then thought, we could make a horror film with that, or we could use that a bit more. Because it just felt like the story in this wasn't really enough for a feature, and it felt like the story had been kind of written around this creature appearing. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, I don't know. But as the film goes on, she's doing various little bits of artwork, and whether that's her, consciously drawing these panels, comic book panels, or something subconsciously is leading her to do these drawings. But her drawings include various people living in the house getting attacked and basically eaten by this monster. And while those drawings are occurring, these things are actually happening. It's not uber gory. Like, we don't necessarily see proper attacks. We don't see it actually slash and whatnot, but we do see it chomping down on like a leg, and we do see it eating an eyeball. So the implication of the visceral violence is there, but we're not actually seeing it like actually slashing someone or actually ripping off things. That might have been a bit too much of a stretch for the budget. Performance-wise, Deborah Farentino as Whitney Taylor. She's pretty good in this. I don't think I've actually seen her in anything else, but she does do a pretty good performance. Everyone else, fine. No one massively sort of stood out. I mean, Jeffrey Combs is Jeffrey Combs, and he's only on screen for 5 minutes, really, if that. So there isn't too much to kind of go on with that. But performance-wise, yeah, it's decent. The music's pretty good, but the music is very typical of, like, Full Moon, Canon, Arena. That tone. If you know that tone, you know the sort of sound and visual tone you're going to get with this film. It's decent. This is the first film out of the box set, the video store box set that I got from Arena on their sale, which includes Dungeon Master, Dolls, Arena, and like Robot Jocks or something. I don't know. The only film I'd seen prior to that was Dolls, and Dolls is pretty good. But this, I thought I'll go with this one for my retro review because it's right there. It's a retro film. I'm not familiar with that at all. Yeah, it's fine. It's pretty fun in places. I'm going to give it a 5.5 because it isn't, it felt more like this would have worked a lot better as a Creepshow story, whether that be in one of the first two films or a more recent adaptation for the TV series, because the TV series is incredibly hit and miss. Sometimes a bit more miss than hit, but it's fine. It's never offensively bad. It's just sometimes the stories are a bit eye roll. Sometimes they're pretty good, but this felt more like an episode of something like that, or Tales from the Dark Side, or maybe Twilight Zone. I don't know, something similar to that. But 5.5 is what I'm going to give Cellar Dweller. And finally, I also need to get the artwork for this because if I've not got the artwork for one, I've not got the artwork for the other. I got the artwork, I just haven't put it on screen. And then for the main review for the show, I watched a little old film called The Passenger. The Passenger is a 2023 American thriller film directed by Carter Smith and written by Jack Stanley. Film stars Kyle Garner and Johnny Berchtold. Jason Blum serves as executive producer through his Blumhouse Television banner. The film was released digitally by MGM Plus on August 4th, 2023. So, this has been on my radar a little while. I remember seeing a trailer for it when I managed to actually watch trailers before doing the news for new films a little while ago. And Kyle Garner is kind of becoming a bit of a unsung hero, not hero, but an unsung face of horror. He's really got a few good appearances under his belt. He had a brief role in Scream, very good in Smile, very good in The Cleansing Hour, and he's done quite a few others. I mean, we won't talk about A Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake, but he's getting a good repertoire under his belt in the world of horror. So, Randy Bradley, Randy is his short name, he's not Randy. Randy Bradley is a fast food worker in rural Louisiana who is slated to be promoted to manager, yet is still bullied by the other employees. After Benson, his co-worker, sees Randy being bullied by another employee, he suddenly snaps and shoots all the workers in the building, save for Randy. Randy reluctantly helps Benson clean the bloody scene, and they place the bodies in the freezer. The duo drive to a nearby diner, where Randy asks why Benson committed the shooting spree. Benson's response is to insult their waitress, saying that she hasn't done anything remarkable in her life. Benson takes Randy to Benson's mother's house to give her some food and cigarettes. When Randy goes to get a phone for his mum, Benson pins him against the wall. They go back to Benson's car. Benson says that he has to hurt Randy to make him learn, and sets up a rule that he does only what is necessary for Randy. And from here, we then kind of get the rest of their journey. So this is very much an independent thriller drama film. But the performances in this are incredible. Like, I really enjoyed the work in this film. Randy, and people call him Bradley because that's his surname, but people assume that was his first name just because that's the name badge he has on, and he was too polite to correct anyone. He is a kid that holds a trauma that he's held for his whole life based on an incident that happened when he was a child, which we very briefly see at the very start of the film. Essentially, an act he did as a little child, the one time in his life that he reacted on his emotions, led to someone being blinded in one eye. And since that point, he's just allowed himself to essentially be a passenger in life, to not stand up for himself, not take any marks, not take any crap, not take a stand on anything, I should say. And because of that, that's then allowed him to be controlled by his overbearing mother. That's allowed him to have relationships just fall apart because he doesn't want to fight for them or show any real truth to his emotions. And it then leads to the opening of the film where he's getting bullied by a co-worker. This dickhead who's basically trying to assert his dominance and make Randy eat a day-old hamburger that's been left on display overnight. And he does it because, he's coming across as a bit of a bitch boy. Sounds derogatory, but he is essentially a walking doormat because of this trauma that he's always held on to. And Benson, on the flip side of it, is someone who has also had a form of trauma. We don't get any sort of explicit confirmation of that, but through actions and reactions in the film later on, you get an inkling of what could have occurred in his childhood. Goes without saying, it's not nice. But he is a man who has snapped, and he has kind of taken Randy under his wing because he hates seeing that Randy just allows himself to be walked over and won't stand up for himself. And he wants to kind of use this moment as a kind of like a teaching moment, as a way to get Randy to start standing up for himself and to not take crap and to make something of his life. Because essentially Benson hasn't made anything of his life until this point where he now feels that he is doing something about it, but through quite rather violent means. And there are other instances of violence as the film progresses. As mentioned, I think Carl Garner is brilliant in this. And Johnny Birchtold does a very, very good performance. Essentially, the majority of his performance, we do see his character's journey, but the majority of the performance is him just on the edge of crying because of being just so terrified of the situation that he has found himself in. But he does go on a journey in this film, and we follow it through that. Other performances, Lisa Wilde does very well as Miss Beard. We see a bit of her later on. She was the teacher of Randy when he was a child. And the action in this, like the shootout, and there's a moment with a very violent fist fight or assault at a school. They are done quite viscerally. They look very authentic. The ending is the only sort of minor letdown, and it's not even so much the ending, it's more the epilogue or the coda at the very end just felt a bit corny. I understand what it's trying to symbolize, but it just it did feel a little bit corny, I have to say. That being said, the actual finale of the film, moments prior to that, I do think was pretty good and was probably the only way that it could go. But I thoroughly enjoyed The Passenger. I say indie thriller because it's not your blockbuster thriller. It's very much focused on dialogue and emotion and nuance as opposed to big bombastic set pieces. It definitely had that indie thriller sort of feel to it with drama undertones. And I really quite enjoyed that. Like, this definitely exceeded my expectations. And if you do enjoy a good thriller and you just know that it's a bit independent and the focus is on the characters' growth journey in that regard, and not expect it to be a big thriller in terms of who done it, find the killer, then you may well enjoy this as well. But I'm going to give The Passenger 8 out of 10. I did generally quite enjoy this film. In terms of future shows, obviously next week, barring any issues or me not being able to watch these films, will be the horror anime movie special. That will be the featured presentation. I have had access to a couple more new films. One of them has an embargo until a couple of weeks into June, so I'm going to watch that nearer to the time that I can then talk about it. Also been invited to another advanced screening of a very exciting film. I've now got confirmation. I'm just looking to confirm if I'm able to attend with +1 or not, because I'd prefer to go with a +1, but we shall see. At the moment, though, there'll be another advanced screening, which last time I had an advanced screening, that show did very, very well. A lot of buzz about that one, so really, really, really looking forward to that. And also, it's just quite cool to go and see a film, a week or so before it's out in general release. I'm never going to take that for granted. That's very, very cool. But guys, that is it for another edition of the Ministry of Horror. Thank you very much for watching this on YouTube. Make sure to give the channel a subscribe. We're slowly building up that subscriber count. Give the video a like. If you're watching, well, you won't be watching this on Twitch, but if you want to watch live, every other week we go on twitch.tv/Tezzius, Tezzzius. You can find me on Instagram, Tezz Elliott, Tezzeliott. On X is ministry_horror. And we're always going out on the podcast platforms. Check out Ministry of Horror on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Still looking to do the retro gaming show. I think now that I've got, as far as I'm aware, for the time being, my studies out of the way, barring any sort of exam resit, which I won't know for 2 months, I will have a bit more time for gaming. So we will look at doing this, once a month or whatever, retro gaming bonus podcast show. And people who are fans of the other shows that I may have done in the past will know that in the next month, the return of House of the Dragon is back. I've picked up the book that the series is based on. Very, very nice hardback. So check out my TikTok, ministry.of.horror, to see a little video of that. It's very, very nice print. But does that mean that Ministry of Dragons is returning? Watch this space. I need to speak to my co-host, Jamie, see, if it is plausible. There's just a lot going on in life, in general, things like that. So watch this space. Watch this space. If we are coming back from, the review series, Ministry of Dragons, you'll find out here first. But thanks very much for watching. God, I can't talk today. I've got a real mush mouth. Thanks very much for watching or listening. I've been your host, Tezz. You've been the ghouls and fiends of the Ministry of Horror. I'll catch you later.